Here to demonstrate the exercises for day 3, phase 2 of WarriorFit. We are at Canton Barbell as usual, and we have the help of owner Michael Mercer to demonstrate the exercises. Michael is going to demonstrate an RFE squat, rear foot elevated squat. He's resting his back leg on a bench, and now he's doing just a regular squat. We put the back leg up on a bench, so we're putting it up there in order to stabilize it somewhere. So now you see Michael with the side view, and notice how he's using the exact same squat mechanics that he would have if both feet were on the ground. If the rear foot elevated squat is too hard, you can just do a traditional 2-footed squat. So Michael is using his loaded grocery bag as his implement. Of course, if you were at the gym, you could use a dumbbell or some other kind of object. If this is too easy, he could increase the weight or resume the rear foot elevated squat. If you were there initially, you can just add more weight to that. Here, Michael is going to demonstrate a plank with arm swings, or sometimes called a row. Here we're simulating the running motion, so we're calling it arm swings. Notice how he keeps his back in an even position, and now he's moving his arm back and forth as if he were running. The side view of that looks like this. Good. He's in a good plank, and now he's just cycling his arm forward and backwards now in order to keep himself in an even position. If this is too hard, you can elevate your hands and do the same motion from there, or you can do the plank just without the arm motion. If it's too easy, you can increase the speed or increase the duration. Here, Michael's going to demonstrate a lateral step up. Notice he's using a paint can as his implement, and he can simply substitute a kettlebell or a dumbbell for this. For the motion itself, watch how he continues to drive vertically through his knee, and notice how he stayed close to the seat or the box the entire time. The side view should look very similar to a squat, but now he's driving up through that elevated leg rather than using the bottom leg to push off from. Just envision that that bottom leg is stepping onto ice. So if you put too much weight on that bottom leg, you're going to fall through the ice. Otherwise, Michael is staying vertical, keeping his weight near his chest as he drives up. The way to make this easier, of course, you could lower the step or get rid of the weight. And the way to make it harder would be to step up, and now you're going to make the lowering slower. So instead of going 1/1000 to 1000, now you're going to maybe add an extra second, or you're going to now be quicker on the way up and then the same speed on the way back down, doing more work during the lowering phase. In this video, Michael is going to demonstrate a pec fly. He's doing the one arm variation, and he's using a can of wood stain as his implement. Of course, you could use a dumbbell or a very light kettlebell if you have that. Notice how he is not allowing himself to rotate off of the bench as he goes, using his abdominals to stabilize his torso. Notice how his hand gets to the level of his shoulder before coming back up. He's controlling that motion all the way through to where his arm is above his shoulder. The way he would make this easier is dropping the can and just moving the weight of his arm. The way to make this harder is he's going to increase the amount of time it takes for him to lower his arm. So now his chest muscles are having to work for a longer period of time than they were before. And then of course, he would do this on both sides. Here, Michael is going to demonstrate a reverse lunge with arms overhead. So our baseline that we recommend is to put your arms over your head, and now you're going to lunge back. Notice how Michael is using the same leg, which we also recommend. Notice how his kneecap stays pointed towards the same direction as his foot the entire time. Notice how his back stays straight as he goes down to his lunge position. Notice how his arms stay overhead. This is really challenging. The way to make this easier is Michael's gonna put his arms over his head only when his knee is down, and then he's gonna keep them up as he steps up, and then he's just gonna do a regular lunge on the way down and then back up. This will help you work on your patterning, make sure you have both components fully before then just keeping them up the entire time. Once that becomes less challenging, then you can hold an implement over your head. Here, Michael is using his handy dandy paint can, which just simulates a dumbbell, kettlebell, medicine ball, whatever you have available. But this works just as easily, even though we're in his gym. Notice how his mechanics don't change at all, even though he's doing a overhead variation and he's loaded. Of course, his lower body mechanics should not vary or deteriorate as he does this motion. For the next exercise, Michael is going to demonstrate a side plank and row. Here, I'm sitting next to the cable machine. He's pulling that cable right to his chest, just as if he were standing. Of course, he's using good side plank mechanics, pushing from the bottom glute, keeping his abdominals engaged. Look how, even though he's pulling, he's staying in a square position. If this was too hard, what he would do instead is he would do that exact same exercise, but now he wouldn't use a weight. And so now he's still rowing, still having to control his pelvis from rotating as he goes, still using his bottom glute to hold himself. If the first version was too easy, you could increase the weight, of course, or also Michael's going to demonstrate a super challenging variation where he's going to lift the leg, maintain his rotation, and row at the same time. You can choose from any of these that best suits your ability level and the workout that you're doing. Here, Michael is going to demonstrate a trio of finisher exercises, starting first with what we are calling a rotational jump. Here he has 4 cones set up in order to mimic the hands of a clock, like 12, 3, 6, and 9. Notice how he's jumping from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock. So after he completes the set going that direction, now he's going to jump from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Again, trying to make 90-degree turns. He's facing exactly 3 o'clock, and then he goes to exactly 6 o'clock. So now we want you to be able to do this without needing the cones, and so now we're getting rid of that for so that now you're just visualizing it in your mind. So to make that easier, we're going to eliminate the rotation first and foremost. Here, Michael's just going to jump off both feet and try to land in a square position, taking off, using a good powerful jump as he goes up and down. The way to make this harder is go back to the turns, or what he's instead going to demonstrate is he's going to jump from one leg to the other and also have rotation. So here, notice how he's got to push off enough from that outside leg at what used to be 9 o'clock in order to land in a square position at 6 o'clock. Same thing there. So again, he's having to get all his body weight over onto that lead leg in order to complete the rotation. Next, Michael is going to demonstrate a forward skip. Here, he's emphasizing pushing on the ground. That's why you can hear him as he goes away from us. Notice how he doesn't sway side to side. Notice how he's using his arms in order to really initiate that ground contact. He's hitting the ground so hard that it's literally lifting him up in the air. If that's too challenging, he's instead going to do what we call overhead marching. He's going to put his arms all the way overhead, and now he's going to hit the ground with just a little less vigor than he did before. Again, look how he's not swaying side to side. You could hold the hands, or you could keep them further apart. This would be a little more challenging than holding your hands. Imagine your feet are on railroad tracks, and so they shouldn't be crossing over to the center line. If that's too easy, instead what we're going to do is what's called a power skip. Here, Michael is not only, he's going to hit the ground as hard as he can and try to get as much height as he can as he goes up into the air. So you should feel like you're floating if you hit this right. So notice how he really comes up in the air, really using his arms to help lead the motion. For the final exercise in today's finisher, Michael is going to demonstrate a diagonal downward chop. Here his feet are split. He's in just a quarter of a squat position, and now he's got his hands balled into fists, and now he's pulling his arms down and across his body, really using his lower half to stabilize himself to the ground, to pull hard, using his abdominals to prevent himself from rotating. So of course he would do this on both sides, and notice how the front leg is the same side as the elevated side, and he's pulling down just as you would if you were chopping some firewood or something like that. Next, we'll show you what this looks like with weight. Here, Michael's gonna show you 3 variations. First, he's gonna show you how to do this with a household object. You can take a paint can if it's full, and of course the lid's gotta be on securely. Also, you could take a paint can and fill it full of sand or dirt if you have that, to make it a little bit heavier. So again, notice how he's pulling that down as if it was a hammer or an axe. And if you feel safe with doing this with a maul or something like that, and have a stump that you cut firewood on, you could do that here too. So if you have gym equipment, you can instead use a Dynamax ball. And now, again, that same thing. Look how Michael's pulling that down across his body, reloading at the top, staying in that good squat position, and also not allowing his hips, his knees to rotate away. The final version is that you can then take either a cable handle or the tricep rope we like, and now what he's gonna do is he's gonna grip that just as if he's holding an axe, and then pull it down across his body. Now really emphasizing that rotation that he is producing with his arms, controlling with his abs.